D. E. Stevenson. Dorothy Emily Peploe was a Scottish author of more than 40 light romantic novels. Her father was the lighthouse engineer David Alan Stevenson, first cousin to the author Robert Louis Stevenson. 2009 saw a renewed interest in Stevenson's books with the reissue of two of her most popular novels, Mrs. Tim of the Regiment and Miss Buncle's Book. The sequel, Miss Buncle Married, was reissued by Persephone in 2011. Early life. D. E. Stevenson was born in 1892 in Edinburgh, Scotland, and was educated at home by governesses. She started to write at 8, but because her parents and governesses disapproved she had to do this in secret. She later wanted to go to university but her father refused, concerned about having an educated woman in the family. Stevenson was married in 1916 to a captain in the 6th Gurkha Rifles. Books: Peter West 1923, Mrs. Tim of the Regiment 1932, Golden Days 1934, Miss Buncle's Book 1934, Divorced from Reality 1935, Smouldering Fire 1935, Miss Buncle Married 1936, The Empty World, A Romance of the Future 1936, Utopia, The Story of Rosabelle Shaw 1937, Miss Bun the Baker's Daughter 1938, Green Money 1939, Rochester's Wife 1940, The English Heir 1940, Mrs. Tim Carries On 1941, Spring Magic 1942, Crooked Adam 1942, Celia's House 1943, The Two Mrs. Abbotts 1943, Listening Valley 1944, The Four Graces 1946, Mrs. Tim Gets a Job 1947, Kate Hardy 1947, Young Mrs. Savage 1948, Victoria Cottage 1949, Music in the Hills 1950, Winter and Rough Weather 1951, Mrs. Tim Flies Home 1952, Five Windows 1953, Charlotte Fairley 1954, Amberwell 1955, Summeralls 1956, The Tall Stranger 1957, Anna and Her Daughters 1958, Still Glides the Stream 1959, The Musgraves 1960, Belle Lamington 1961, Fletcher's End 1962, The Blue Sapphire 1963, Catherine Wentworth 1964, Catherine's Marriage 1965, The House on the Cliff 1966, Sarah Morris Remembers 1967, Sarah's Cottage 1968, Gerald and Elizabeth 1969, House of the Deer 1970. Inter-book links: Miss Buncle spills into The Four Graces as well as Spring Magic, and her book is described in Anna and Her Daughters. Celia's House inspired Listening Valley, where Celia makes a reappearance. We hear of her again during Anna and Her Daughters. Anna pops up briefly in the Catherine books which link with Charlotte Fairley. Later Sarah Morris ends up in Rydalton in Sarah's cottage to be befriended by Debbie and to hear about Tonia and Charlotte Fairley. More links exist from the Catherine books, via Mr. Cinchwood the lawyer, to House on the Cliff which links via Miss Martino the landlady to the Blue Sapphire. The Catherine books also tell us more about McKeslan who we first meet in Smouldering Fire. Stevenson's last book, The House of the Deer revisits the McKeslan family in the second generation, and is a sequel to Gerald and Elizabeth. Gerald and Elizabeth enter into the saga around Roomberley and reintroduce Frida from Five Windows. Jock from the Music in the Hills trilogy also knows of Frida. Belle Lamington links into these books. Belle's friend Margaret was a Musgrave, and there are links from the Musgraves to The Tall Stranger, which was a sequel to Five Windows. The Musgraves give a tenuous link back to Rydalton via the Mulberry Coach, a story written by one of Anna's daughters and nearly performed by Delia Musgrave. The Amberwell books link closely to Still Glides the Stream which in turn ties in with the Sarah books, in that Will and Sarah both visit Nivens and meet with the de Lormes family, although their visits are many years apart. Another recurring character is the author Janetta Walters, whose light romantic novels are either loved or loathed by Stevenson characters. We first hear of her books in Mrs. Tim Carries On and Spring Magic. She appears in person in The Two Mrs. Abbotts and The Four Graces. Republication: Persephone Books reprinted Miss Buncle's Book in 2008 and Miss Buncle Married in 2011. Sourcebooks Landmark released them in the US in 2012. followed in 2013 by The Young Clementina and The Two Mrs. Abbotts. External links: stevenson.org, the original site, author profile at Persephone Books, Miss Bunkle's book at Persephone Books. References